The very first time he lays eyes on the girl in front of him, he feels himself completely falling for her. To show off his masculine bravado, he smashes her ping-pong ball away with a clumsy shot, before stepping up to her with the swagger of a seasoned coach. Faced with her bashful face and flattering voice, Chris is utterly defenseless. But just when he wants to make a bolder move, Nola's boyfriend Tom walks right in. Seeing their intimate interaction, Chris has no choice but to swallow his words, considering the woman before him is his friend's fiancée. Chris is a highly gifted tennis player, yet he decisively abandons his professional career to become a mere tennis coach. Chris believes that hard work is completely worthless in the face of luck, just like how a tennis ball hitting the net will land on either your side or your opponent's side, entirely based on fate. Therefore, he figures that instead of grinding out a future through hard work, he might as well wait for a massive stroke of fortune right here on this training ground. After all, this is a rich man's sport, and anyone who comes here to learn tennis, whether male or female, is either filthy rich or highly influential. Before long, the boss introduces Tom to Chris. Since they are close in age and Tom is quite easygoing, the two quickly hit it off and become fast friends. During a chat, Tom mentions that there is an opera coming up in a few days, suggesting that if Chris likes opera, he can tag along since it is a VIP box with plenty of room. Faced with such a golden ticket into high society, there is absolutely no way Chris can refuse. Just like that, he tags along with Tom to the Grand Theater's VIP box. Tom not only introduces him to his parents, but also to his younger sister, Chloe. While Chris naturally locks into the high-end performance, Chloe, who has long been bored of it, spends the entire show secretly checking him out. One might wonder if he fails to notice. Of course he does. He just knows that if you want to secure a prime sugar mama, you absolutely cannot rush the process. Within 2 days, Tom calls Chris to let him know that Chloe fancies him and wants to invite him over to their family villa for the weekend. Tom's family boasts their own tennis court, so the invited Chris acts just like he is on the clock, teaching Chloe how to play for a while. No matter how terribly Chloe plays, he doesn't spare a single word of praise. When she asks about his ambitions, Chris states that although he is broke right now, he will never stop moving forward, and being a tennis coach is merely a stepping stone. With these words, his perfect persona is basically locked down. As for Chloe, she has absolutely no concept of what struggling means, so seeing such an ambitious young man instantly maxes out her admiration for him. This is supposed to be a flawless start. But while touring the villa, he crosses paths with Nola. Nola's presence instantly shatters Chris's psychological equilibrium, turning things into a game of upper body calculation for Chloe and pure lower body lust for Nola. However, the current Chris doesn't have the luxury of choice at all. To gain a solid footing as quickly as possible, Chris begins dating Chloe aggressively, and they soon make their relationship official. Chloe is a sweet and kind girl, so once they become a couple, she is definitely looking at marriage down the line. Consequently, Chloe talks to her father about letting Chris try his hand at the family company. Fortunately, Chloe's parents both have a pretty solid impression of Chris. The next day, Chloe tracks down Chris and tells him that her father has agreed to give him a corporate position, meaning that as long as he doesn't pull off a major screw-up, climbing the corporate ladder is a done deal. Upon hearing this, Chris doesn't act overjoyed, but instead plays a clever game of hard to get. He admits that this is an incredible opportunity to flip his script, but receiving it this way makes it somewhat tough to swallow. Chris claims that a future is best earned and forged by one's own hands, so he needs to give it some serious thought. Hearing this, Chloe assumes that this arrangement has wounded her boyfriend's pride, making her admire him even more. Of course, Chris doesn't need any time to think at all. While mingling with the family and constantly feasting his eyes on Nola's beauty, he uses flawless acting to craft his persona and successfully secures a spot in his future father-in-law's company. As his job gradually stabilizes, Chris begins letting his mind wander into dangerous territory. One day, he is supposed to enjoy some quality couple time with Chloe at home when she casually mentions that her brother and sister-in-law are heading to the movies, asking if she wants to tag along. Chloe originally turns her brother down just to stay with Chris, but the moment Chris hears this, he instantly blurts out that he wants to go too. Naive Chloe doesn't think twice and heads to the cinema with Chris. However, the only person who shows up is Tom.
Where is she?
Nearly got a migraine at the last moment, and unfortunately she can't make it. But she sends a lot.
The wicked seed in his heart has already sprouted and grown, and Chris can no longer push it out of his mind. One day on his way to the company, he crosses paths with Nola by pure chance. Nola studied acting, but since she fails every single audition after graduation, she is stuck in a state of unemployment. Today, she is setting out for yet another audition. Seeing that she is out by herself, Chris proactively offers to accompany her. For Chris, this is a rare and precious window to get some one-on-one time with Nola. After waiting for ages, Nola walks out with a look of pure disappointment, having flunked the audition just like every other time. Feeling quite down, Nola mentions she wants to grab a drink, and Chris naturally tag teams with her the whole way. Nola has a straightforward and bold personality, harboring a slight crush on Chris, but she knows exactly where the boundaries lie and understands her own position. Since she lacks a stable job and a wealthy family background, coupled with the fact that the acting industry is prone to nasty rumors, Tom's parents aren't fond of Nola, making it highly unlikely that she and Tom will ever tie the knot. But Chris is different, currently entrusted with heavy responsibilities by Alec and looking at a genuinely bright future. Therefore, Nola kindly warns Chris that he had better not harbor any improper thoughts about her. If he does, she won't really care, but it might just ruin his entire life. It isn't that Chris doesn't understand these harsh realities, he is simply gambling on his own luck. After some time passes, one day while Nola and Tom are playing chess at home, Eleanor suddenly blurts out that Nola should go find a proper job. Auditioning and failing repeatedly for so long is clearly getting them nowhere. However, Nola is genuinely passionate about acting, which happens to be her dream, and failing constantly isn't exactly the outcome she wants to see either. She has never asked for Tom's money, nor has she ever thought about bagging a sugar daddy, as Nola simply wants to pursue the career she loves and achieve self-fulfillment through it. Thus, hearing Eleanor's passive-aggressive remarks inevitably makes her feel incredibly uncomfortable. Already frustrated by her stagnant career, this adds fuel to the fire, prompting an angry Nola to storm out of the house. Out in the pouring rain, Nola storms away with hurried steps. This exact scene happens to catch Chris's eye, so he chases after her without a moment's hesitation. For Nola, being with Tom brings immense pressure from his family, whereas she feels absolutely none of that in front of Chris. Driven by a cocktail of factors, Nola ultimately takes that fateful step that will lead her to an irreversible abyss. And this single step completely steals Chris's soul away. It isn't because of his utter downfall, but rather due to Nola's shocking clarity and sobriety. For several months, she ignores Chris entirely, offering not a single word of explanation. Driven to the brink of insanity, Chris snatches an opportunity to confront Nola about what is going on. No matter what Chris says, Nola refuses to get tangled up with him any further. Compared to Chris, Nola is far more upfront, believing that tasting the forbidden fruit once is quite enough, as overindulging will surely bring a nasty backlash. The only problem is that while she can keep a clear head about herself, she fails to read Chris accurately. The current Chris is winning at both his career and his love life. Yet, on the map of his possessiveness, Nola's territory remains a glaring, blank space. Especially when watching Nola and Tom get intimate, the swelling wave of impulsive emotion inside Chris becomes almost impossible to suppress. Before long, following the exact script written in his mind, naive Chloe walks down the aisle with him. Alec gifts the newlyweds a massively expensive mansion in a prime location. The current Chris has officially pulled off an ugly duckling transformation, making this a highly successful climb up the social ladder. Not only does his wife hang on his every word, but his father-in-law is also incredibly generous and trusting toward him. One day, while playing tennis with Chris, Tom mentions that he and Nola have broken up. Given Tom's family background, finding a girl from a matching social status is a walk in the park, so he isn't suffering much, chalking it up to him and Nola being destined but not meant to be. But just because Tom couldn't keep that spark alive doesn't mean Chris can't pick up the torch. Upon returning to the office, Chris dials Nola's number, only to find out she has long changed it. Unable to contain himself, he goes straight to Nola's apartment. But ever since the breakup with Tom, Nola has relocated elsewhere without leaving any other contact info. No matter how desperately Chris wants her, his hands are completely tied. Soon enough, Tom also gets married, and his life resumes its usual rhythm without any major shifts. Chris, on the other hand, has to face a wife he has long lost passion for and an endless mountain of corporate work every single day. One day, he is supposed to accompany his wife to an art exhibition when he unexpectedly catches sight of Nola's reflection through the glass on his way into the gallery. This sudden sight instantly re-energizes him. After locating Chloe, Chris immediately claims that the signal inside is terrible, telling her to browse with her friend first while he steps outside to make a call. Taking advantage of this window, he hunts through the various exhibition halls, finally tracking Nola down right in front of a painting. Nola is equally shocked to bump into Chris in a place like this. She has just moved back into the city a couple of days ago.
You live alone?
Why are you asking me these questions? Aren't you still married?
Can I meet you for a drink? Talk. Where can I reach you? Come on.
My goodness, hello.
Hi, darling.
Seeing his wife walk over, Chris doesn't panic at all. Chloe greets Nola politely before preparing to head into another gallery with her friend. Right at that moment, Chris begs Nola in a barely audible whisper to leave him her phone number. By the very next day, he is already lying in Nola's bed. This woman he has been obsessing over has finally become his prize. At home, Chris is completely tuned out, lacking any shred of passion for his wife and refusing to even go through the motions. Whenever he has a spare moment, he flies to Nola's side, even fabricating excuses to sneak away during work hours just to catch a quick tryst with her. As time marches on, Nola gradually begins to shift, moving from enjoying the casual affair to demanding more companionship and even a stable home from Chris.
You're never gonna leave Chloe.
Maybe I will. Really. I mean it.
The moment those words leave her mouth, a total role reversal flips their dynamic completely upside down. While Chris will agree to absolutely anything out loud, his mind is already mapping out an exit strategy to cut himself loose. But Nola doesn't give him that chance at all. After spending so much time together, Nola has long grown dependent on Chris. She used to wait around for Chris to hit her up, but now, no matter where Chris is, the moment she misses him, she dials his number directly. Caught in the middle of a family gathering, Chris rushes to find a secluded spot to pick up the call. Nola demands that he come see her right this instant. Yet Chris has absolutely no valid excuse to step out. Since the company is closed for the weekend and Chris has no other social circles, he chooses to hang up the phone to avoid raising any red flags. However, right when the family is having dinner that evening, the butler suddenly approaches Chris and informs him that he has a phone call.
Are you mad calling me here? What the hell's the matter?
I'm pregnant.
This single sentence causes Chris's brain to completely short-circuit. Returning to the dinner table with a face full of anxiety, he racks his brain for a way to resolve this mess. At this moment, Chloe asks who called, and Chris casually claims it is his secretary. On the surface, he manages to brush it off, but in reality, Chloe isn't completely blind to the changes in Chris. She simply chooses not to press him too hard out of pure trust. The next day, Chris trades 6 elaborate lies just to score a single hour of face-to-face time.
Okay, well, I'll go with you and we'll get us sorted.
I'm not doing that again.
Again? What's that supposed to mean?
It's the third time.
Chris completely fails to anticipate this kind of outcome. Before showing up, he assumes he can just throw some cash at the problem to make it go away. But little does he know that Nola is actually looking to build a real life with him. Continuing the argument is entirely pointless, as it might only provoke Nola into taking extreme actions. For the time being, Chris can only play the long game. Upon returning home, Chris has no idea how to look Chloe in the eye. Although Chloe might not be as seductive as Nola, as a wife, she is absolutely flawless, being incredibly gentle, virtuous, and understanding. Most importantly, despite growing up in such an incredibly wealthy household, she is neither arrogant nor conceited, putting Chris first in everything out of fear that their wealth gap might stress him out. And it is precisely because he has such an incredible rock of a wife at home that Chris is able to thrive and climb the ranks smoothly in Alex's company. Therefore, a profound guilt weighs heavily on his heart, as he feels he is failing both his wife and Nola. If he returns to his family, he can go right on living like royalty. But if he chooses love, he will have to face the grueling reality of scraping by on a tight budget. He wants to try coming clean and making a choice, but after hesitating for the longest time, he swallows the words right back down. Meanwhile, Nola gradually begins to spiral into pure hysteria. She is carrying Chris's child in her belly, yet she doesn't even have a proper shred of status. Throughout this ongoing tug of war, Chris is rapidly burning through whatever affection he once had for Nola. The current Nola is no longer a lover in his eyes, but rather an absolute nightmare of a liability. In the past, he used to lie to Chloe just to sneak out and see Nola, but now he is lying to Nola just to avoid seeing her. Finally, one day, Nola corners Chris right outside his company building, screaming at the top of her lungs as she calls out, "This irresponsible scumbag." Seeing Nola completely lose her mind like this, Chris quickly hails a cab and flees the company. Once they return to Nola's apartment, they slip right back into their endless cycle of fighting. Nola sternly declares that if he lacks the guts to confess to Chloe, then she will gladly play the villain herself.
I'll do the right thing.
By this point, Chris realizes that this is his absolute last chance to stall for time. If things keep going this way, Nola will undoubtedly march right up to his front door. That night, Chris gets absolutely zero sleep as he cooks up a high-stakes plan to gamble with fate. The next day, he slips down into Alex's basement on the down low, packing a double-barreled hunting shotgun right into his bag. Up in the living room, Chloe keeps calling out his name since she can't find him anywhere. Chris successfully sneaks out of the house with that double-barreled shotgun. When they return home that evening, Chloe actually goes through his bag to look for his tennis gear, prompting Chris to rush over and stop her immediately. You have to give it to him. Chris is remarkably ice-cold, because if a single thing goes sideways at a moment like this, it is absolute game over.
Hello, Nola. Everything's taken care of, but I'm reluctant to talk on the phone.
Okay, I'll cancel my agent appointment.
After locking down a time with Nola, Chris heads back to the office and closes yet another massive corporate deal. Carrying a heart full of nervous anxiety, Chris arrives at the rental building ahead of schedule. He first knocks on the door of the next-door neighbor, Mrs. Eastby. Since Mrs. Eastby has seen Chris around during his previous visits to Nola, she lets him right inside without thinking twice. Chris claims that Nola's TV signal is acting up, so he wants to check if everyone else in the building is dealing with the same issue. Upon securing her permission, Mrs. Eastby heads to her room to take her medication, while Chris immediately begins assembling his shotgun right in the living room. Mrs. Eastby probably never imagines in her wildest dreams that her life will come to an end in this exact manner. Chris never expects himself to be cornered onto the path of taking a life either, but there is zero time to waste. So to stage the entire scene as a robbery gone wrong, he immediately trashes the room, plundering the jewelry from Mrs. Eastby's jewelry box and refusing to spare even the watch and gold ring right off her body. After cleaning up the crime scene, Chris tries to steady his breathing while keeping his eyes glued to the clock on the wall. A few minutes later, Nola gets off work and returns to the front of the building with a heart full of anticipation. Unfortunately, the person waiting for her is no longer the man who once loved her, but a completely twisted monster.
Nola.
Immediately after, Chris flees the building in a state of sheer panic. According to his master plan, he needs to meet up with Chloe for a musical right away, which will secure him a flawless alibi. His entire criminal operation today is far from perfect, and one could even say it is riddled with holes. However, this is already the absolute limit of what he can pull off. As for how the chips will fall, he can only leave it all up to fate. While they are busy enjoying the show, the police receive the emergency call and arrive at the scene. Based on the physical evidence left behind, the lead detective makes a preliminary judgment that an intruder breaks in to rob Mrs. Eastby, only to cross paths with Nola on her way home, choosing to silence her permanently. Since this particular neighborhood is crawling with criminals and similar robbery-turned-homicide cases happen all the time, the detective doesn't give it a second thought. The next morning at home, while Chloe is having breakfast, she catches the report of the shooting in the newspaper, absolutely shocked to see that one of the victims is none other than Nola. Hearing his wife's startled screams, Chris puts on a masterclass of simulated shock and disbelief. Chloe will never guess in her wildest dreams that the smoking gun is sitting right inside the tennis bag next to them. The following day, Chloe gets ready to share some great news with her mother. Meanwhile, Chris is busy returning the shotgun to its rightful spot, even going as far as slipping the spent shells back into Alex's leather pouch. Then, after stuffing all the stolen jewelry deep into his trousers, he walks out acting completely normal. Chloe joyfully breaks the news to her mother that she is pregnant. Alec is absolutely over the moon upon hearing this. Right as they are offering their blessings, the butler walks in and tells Chris that his secretary is on the line. He picks up the phone, and his secretary tells him that Detective Banner, from the police department, wants him to call back to answer a few questions. Slipping away to a deserted corner, Chris forces himself to act cool as he dials Detective Banner. The two lock down a meeting time, with Banner requesting that Chris swing by the precinct. Chris obviously knows exactly what this is about, so before heading over, he tracks down a riverbank and dumps all of Mrs. Eastby's jewelry and medicine straight into the water. Mrs. Eastby's ring acts exactly like that initial tennis ball, where the split second it strikes the net, it triggers two completely different destinies, and which side it falls on is pure luck. Upon arriving at the station, Banner tosses a few routine questions Chris's way. Chris calmly states that he knows Nola simply because she is Tom's ex-girlfriend, claiming no other ties to her whatsoever. Banner anticipates this exact response and doesn't rush to expose him, instead pulling out a diary. Nola's diary records every single detail of her relationship with Chris. Faced with this damning piece of evidence, Chris's brain works at lightning speed. He instantly switches into a state of profound, self-loathing agony, confessing his extramarital affair to Banner. From his initial encounter with Nola to how they snuck around behind everyone's backs, he lays it all bare. The more emotional his confession sounds, the more Banner will downplay any potential motive for a hit. In the eyes of an ordinary person, if you want to handle a messy affair, you can just throw some money at it, meaning there is absolutely no reason to resort to eliminating someone. Most importantly, one of the victims is Mrs. Eastby, who has absolutely zero connection to the situation. Finally, Chris begs Banner not to make his scandalous affair public. In the end, he leaves his phone number, stating that he is more than willing to cooperate actively with any further investigation or questioning at a moment's notice. Since there is no direct evidence tying him to the act, Banner lets Chris walk out of the precinct for the time being. Faced with such a spotless record, the police aren't exactly thrilled to pour massive energy into a seemingly standard homicide case. Yet, back at home that night, Chris cannot catch a single wink of sleep. He isn't just taking 2 lives, he is taking 3, given that Nola is heavily pregnant. This crushing psychological weight leaves him struggling to breathe, while Chris spends the night repenting.
I see how he did it. Chris Wilton killed him.
Banner actually pieces together Chris's exact modus operandi, leaving them with nothing to do but hunt down some direct evidence. However, his partner, Inspector Dowd, breaks the news to him that a certain criminal gets into a shootout over some illicit goods with another criminal in that exact same neighborhood at 4 in the morning, and the police recover Mrs. Eastby's gold ring right off that dead criminal's body. Just like that, a crime riddled with amateur mistakes ends up getting pinned entirely on a deceased criminal. Not long after, Chris's newborn baby is brought back home. The entire family gathers around the little bundle of joy with beaming smiles. They all believe that this child is the luckiest baby in the entire world. Only Chris, standing silently by the window, harbors a completely different perspective on what luck truly means. The reason Chris chooses to eliminate Nola is a cold decision born out of calculating the pros and cons. If he gets caught taking a life, he will end up behind bars, and prison will tear him away from society, forcibly cutting off every single desire. But if his affair with Nola gets exposed to the light, he will turn into a stray dog in a chaotic world, forced to scrape by while being utterly despised by everyone. This is an outcome he can never bring himself to accept. However, the director uses this extreme stroke of luck to deliver a harsh truth, showing us that such a convenient escape simply does not exist.